to the Wolfkeeper, a show that's just about everything that you could maybe think about, everything that you can feel that's inside of your heart. What I need for you to do right now is spend the next hour relaxing. Just stop your day before you go into 12 o'clock. And I just want y'all to close your minds, open your hearts, and relax and go on this journey with me. It's a beautiful place that you're about to go, because I want to make you feel, I want to just open you up and think about some things you never really thought about. Right now, the Wolfkeeper. Come on. Good morning, y'all. Come on. It's the Wolfkeeper show. Get ready. Come on, let's go. Yeah. Woo. Yeah. It's the Wolfkeeper show. Your boy, Toriano Sanzoni. Yeah. Chanelli Nell. My boy Tyrone Scott somewhere rocking the Doogie Dogs. Denzel's in his house. Shacky Shack. And for all the people out there that love us, we love you back. Thank you all. Get ready for an amazing show with the Wolfkeeper. Get ready. Here we go. Yo, welcome to the Wolfkeeper show. I'm your host, Toriano Sanzoni, the one and only, with my co-host, Johan Jones. We're feeling great, coming to you live and direct from Chicago, Illinois. And I have some amazing guests today that we're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to jam a whole bunch of information and knowledge into 1 hour, straight from Rochester, New York, Sabrina Kearns. Did I pronounce that right, Kearns?
Yeah, that works.
No, it's Kearns.
Yeah.
Yeah? You're saying it like you're not... Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
And Michelle Massey. Did I pronounce... I was like... I feel bad. I was like, I hate when people mess my name up. But I was like it was too much. It was like name overload. But I have to get this correct. Can you say Kearns?
So I use my full hyphenated name for the most part, so it's Solaris Kearns, but everybody just, I'm so used to everyone pronouncing it wrong that I just kind of like,
no, we got to go in for the real name. Come on, bring it to me. What is it?
Solaris Kearns.
Kearns.
Yeah, that works.
It's not right though. I
It's
feel like
hyphenated.
it's hyphenated.
It is, yeah.
So that's Kern?
Suarez.
Suarez Kern.
Yeah.
I feel better now.
Yeah, there you go.
Because Michelle, when I heard Kern, I think of our joint friend Kearns.
Yeah.
Kearney, who's a Kernsey. So whenever I see your last name, that instantly goes through my mind. So this is going to be a fabulous show. Thank you all. We met Sabrina, and people always like, what brought you to doing a podcast, Toriano? You're a dog trainer. I just follow my heart, y'all. And my heart said, do a podcast, because I meet so many fabulous people, and I want to let people know. I want the world to know how many fabulous people that I know, because everyone I meet through dog training ends up becoming lifelong friends. And we met because of a doggy, through a friend, I think a friend of a friend.
Yeah, a friend of a friend.
A friend of a friend.
4 states over.
4 states over, because we're over here all the way in Chicago, and then you're all the way over in Rochester, New York. And Michelle, this is how you're connected to this. While I was driving through Minnesota, Sabrina was like, I have to have this dog. It was like the most compelling, like, because the dog was about to go to another home, and you were like, no, this is like my dog. I need this dog.
We're coming to get him.
So she drove from Rochester. I'm driving. Oh, I was down. You remember Cara Ordenblad?
Yeah. So
I was in Wilmer, Minnesota, like in the middle of a meeting. I said, let me take this call. Let me step outside. I'm outside of Cara's porch in small town Wilmer. And Sabrina is telling me why she needed. So anyway, she brought our Labrador Cody into her life. And they drove out here, her and her husband drove out here, and it was like instant friendship. We just like bonded and we clicked. And you are a first responder, so much props. That's a huge, that gets a big, first responders are no joke. My aunt's in labor and delivery, my other aunt's in NIC unit. My friend Zandra is a traveling nurse. I know I'm around nurses all day. My late great friend Tim Lawler was emergency. You all are no joke. And last week they were striking here in Chicago, which I'm like, don't be pissing no nurses off. We need you all. So you like dog mom. You got cheering, right? You're caring for people, and I love it because you were sending me clips. You were out there protesting.
Yeah,
like you're
just been having a moment here.
So tell me, how many kids do you have?
I feel like I wear a lot of hats.
You do. How many children do you have?
2.
And I have
a 3-year-old who is currently Zooming right now, which is insane. Just putting that out there. And a 5.5-year-old who's Zoom kindergartening as well. But the 3-year-old on her Zoom preschool thing has really just taken my life to a whole new level, I think.
So first responders, I mean, because you all are, I mean, that's no joke, because I won't even lie. Finding out someone has COVID is no joke. And then you're around COVID, you're in situations to be exposed. So you're in Rochester, and that just whole thing happened. But prior to that, just how's it been as like a first responder out there in New York City?
So I did not go to New York City. My hospital responded locally by disassembling a lot of our surgical units. So I'm by trade surgical ICU nurse. I'm certified. And we started stopping all of elective cases and created the highly infectious disease unit. So at my local institution, I got kind of volunteered and voluntold that this was kind of my new position.
I like that, voluntold.
Yeah, at the time we were learning a lot from New York City, but the information we had was just evolving every single day. The patient population was changing, so we had to be highly adaptable in this situation where we just really were going in blind. So I think just having no bearings whatsoever and only taking the critical care experience that we all had to the table without having clear guidelines really forced everyone in the entire healthcare team to just be practicing at the top of their scope at all times. And that stress, right, where now you don't know what's going on, you don't know the patient population anymore, and having to meet and exceed the bar where you normally live, just, it was scary, I think, for myself, for my family, but for the patients, because being in just this uncharted water and not knowing how to treat them, and kind of taking recommendations from New York City and other cities that were experiencing crisis, how could we apply that to our hospital, and what did that look like in our specific patient populations?
Right.
And eventually we started to not follow their guidelines and say, we're just going to practice medicine the way we know how to practice medicine, and we're going to save lives the way that we know how to. And even bridging that gap was really challenging. So
that's scary though.
And since then, our cases have drastically reduced. We were able to close 3 of the 4 COVID ICUs that we had created, and now we're doing elective surgeries again. So things are kind of going back to normal, but the fear of the next wave is kind of this looming thing where everyone's kind of waiting and seeing. New York City still has like 50,000 cases, so it's
wow.
Yeah, it's just kind of a day-to-day thing, a little touch and go.
And because your husband, he's in healthcare also.
Yeah, he's a physician assistant. So he works in the cardiothoracic ICU. So their patient population, those people were still having heart attacks. They were still having aortic dissections. That didn't stop. So they were still doing their emergent cases while caring for these cardiac patients with the COVID population in the hospital. So that put in a whole level of stress for them, because now you have a patient population, many of them have open chests, and now you have a giant hole directly to your heart that you needed to not only protect from all the complications of that, but from the COVID infections in the hospital as well. So his level of stress as a provider was insanely through the roof, because now you're not just protecting what you know, you're trying to protect what you know from something you don't know. You're chasing like a ghost in the dark.
Wow. And then was that, because I know some of my friends here that were both parents that work in the medical care, they were stressed out about bringing something home. So a lot of them were doing like these crazy decontamination processes for coming into. Did you have anything crazy? Like, did you turn the garage into like NASA and like spray down and like strip down before walking to the house?
No. But a lot of people that I worked with did. So what we know about COVID as a respiratory antigen agent, right? So it's a droplet. It comes out of your mouth and nose when you talk and speak. What we know about these types of viruses, the coronaviruses, is that they're not really great at living outside the body. So early on, they were doing studies on how long it could survive on things like cardboard and fabric and plastic. And we were starting to see early on that it can't survive long outside the body. And then what we were detecting even 24 hours out was just fragments of dead virus, not actual infective agents. So I didn't set up the whole decon thing that I know some people did. I know some people still do it. So maybe it's bad on me for not being that concerned. I've been like ass deep in some other really nasty things. So COVID maybe doesn't scare me as much as other things definitely do. Like if I have a C. diff patient, which is a GI infection, that's a whole, like, you burn everything just at the hospital and hope you can cross your fingers and hope for the best. But we just put our clothes right into the washing machine.
So are you saying that some of the COVID was hype as far as like people like with the plastic gloves? I mean, I'm still confused.
No, absolutely not. The PPE inside the hospital was 100% appropriate. We've been able to dial it back in certain instances where we now know, because we were doing the full glove gown, mask, everything for patients who were testing positive a month out. We now know that you can have a positive test while not actually being in like an active infective state where you are contagious. So in terms of like the healthcare response of how we were gloving and gowning, I don't think that was excessive. I do think that gloves for the general population is unsafe, just because it gives a false sense of barrier, right? Like if you have gloves on, you can just kind of touch everything, and I've seen it at the grocery store. That's just not how it works. You're better off not wearing gloves, washing your hands before and after all interactions, and practicing really good hand hygiene. I mean, we know both in healthcare and in public health that washing your hands is the single best thing that you can do to prevent the spread of infection. And there's actually been some pretty cool stuff coming out about masking now that's pretty interesting too.
That I just want to, and I said today on my face on my social media, woman power. You mean, because there's a lot of moms that are out there, single moms in Chicago, like where I'm from, North Lawndale. We have the largest population of single moms with children.
I can't imagine how hard these women are working. I want to just like high five all of them constantly.
Well, you're one of them because you're in the healthcare, you're nursing, and then you have.
But I'm not saying the single moms out in the world. Like, I cannot tell you the power that these women possess, because even with all the support I have, I'm barely holding it together. And these women who do it on their own, they are like my absolute queens.
But you.
I wish we could do more for them.
And why I wanted both of you all on the show today, because thank you being first. I mean, for real, because my biggest fear, I have flashbacks of Hurricane Katrina, and I remember when people started walking off, like when police officers were like, can't do this anymore, first responder, and I think that we're not really paying attention, because right now, I mean, there's so much still going on, because then, you got Zoom, like you said, you got kindergarten going on across the hall right now. You're a first responder. But then you guys had Rochester, New York, and I commend you. And I'm going to just ask you a real question, because a lot of people are saying, one, the rioting is stupid, the looting is stupid. Why are these people even out there? And then I've been hearing some of my great friends saying some of the craziest racist ass shit I've ever heard, as far as I can't believe they're doing this. They're tearing up their own things. But then you were out there protesting. You were out there, and I was loving the videos and the clips that you were sending me, because I was getting this live feed from like Rochester, New York, like you needed one more thing to do outside of children staying alive at a hospital. Like, you needed one more thing to do. So for people that are out there that are saying all that stupid is nonsense, it shouldn't happen, they hate it, it's inconvenience to the world, why did you put yourself in Rochester of all places? Because you guys were going down.
Well, I think it's kind of like a twofold answer, right? On one hand, I fundamentally believe that white silence is equivalent to violence. So the first night I was unable to go, it was a Friday night. I was home with my kids, and I was watching the live footage, and hours. I watched the whole thing live, and I'm like sitting there crying, and then just this burning sensation in your entire body where you want to do something, but you have no idea what, right? Like, do I just go there? Like, I can't just go there. That's crazy. But is it? I don't know. So this was just kind of going on for like the whole 30 hours that I'm kind of watching this. Saturday rolled around. I had childcare kind of secured. It was about 8 p.m. I'm texting everybody I know. I'm like, guys, is anybody going? Do you know anyone who's going? Should we go? Do we go? What do we do here? Is this bad? This is bad. But I couldn't sit home. So I started reaching out to people I didn't know who had been going. And was like, hey, can we meet up? Is there somewhere I can meet you? And I sort of went in blind, which, by the way, I got tear gassed. So I definitely should have prepared better for that.
You weren't ready for the tear gas?
Yeah, I was not. I had an umbrella. I was like fucking Mary Poppins, okay? And I'm like, yeah. And so me and my Mary Poppins umbrella got tear gassed 5 times, which we later found out was with expired tear gas, so we actually had no idea what we were hit with. I'm contacted by a lawyer, though, so that's interesting. There's some stuff going on there.
But why, Sabrina? Why be out there? I'm speaking.
Okay, so this brings us to point 2, right? So point 2. So one, I believe that white silence is equivalent to violence, and point 2, as a healthcare professional who sees and firsthand what a lack of access to care and what these socioeconomic disparaging situations cause for people, I feel a call to action among a multitude of things. So it's not just Black Lives Matter that make me feel like I have to do something. It's, the bystander effect, right? Like you see something and most people are like, somebody else is going to deal with that. But it just doesn't apply to me. I've never been somebody who can just let things go. So on a personal level, right now, I'm this person who sees something and just has to do something about it, combined with the fact that I truly believe that white silence is violence. And I have no choice. So I went and got to your desk. It was horrible. And we had some insane footage of it. And now what is coming from these protests is true change. And we are actually seeing change. So the people who fixate on the rioting and the looting and like all this stuff isn't really happening, by the way. It's a media narrative. It's a way to avoid talking about uncomfortable things. I find the vast majority of people who fixate on those components of it are surrounded in essentially an echo chamber with people who they don't experience outward racism or they don't experience what these socioeconomic disparaging aspects or components of living below the poverty line that people of color in any inner city really experience. So if they don't live there, they don't see it, right? So you could be that person and say, well, these things don't exist because I've never seen it. So if I've never seen it, it's definitely not happening. And then they're surrounded by other people who are like, well, I've never seen it either, so it's for sure not happening.
Right.
And they kind of like echo that with each other. And then you have this whole group of people going around saying like, oh, well, they're just looting and rioting and like they're just burning their own city to the ground. What's the point? Because these things don't affect them. So it doesn't matter to them. And even though me personally, I don't have to worry about getting shot at a traffic violation, which is a whole other ballgame, right? But even though I don't personally have to worry about it, I don't want that for my community. I don't want that for my children. I don't want that for literally fucking anybody. So I have to do something about it.
And I mean, the thing we all have in common is I'm asking a loaded question because Lord knows I don't need any more projects. And some people asked me to go out and walk with them on a peaceful protest, which turned into freaking the most insane, violent situation that I've seen in my life. I mean, I got called a nigger, a moolie, or get the fuck out of our neighborhood. And this was people I know that got irate, with the protest. So we know that, and like you said, you feel like you have to do something. And when you said the tear gas in your eye, and I'm going to go bring Michelle into this because on May 25th, I remember my son texting me that I got tear gas in my eye, and it just made me uncontrollably cry. I couldn't stop crying. Like that one little phrase, like, dude, how the fuck are we in the world right now where tear gas is an issue on American soil? You know what I mean? I'm just being,
it's amazing because it's a war crime if you use it anywhere else. But civilians,
I don't even get that.
Perfectly reasonable.
And then Michelle, you're in Minnesota on May 25th. The most horrific thing happened to George Floyd, which sent a shockwave to the entire world. And we'd be remiss not to talk about this. People tell me like, "Oh, Toriano, just talk about positive things." I'm like, you cannot not talk about it because honestly, and I'm telling people this, I was stressed out about my son going to Minnesota for school 2 weeks ago because that weekend where his normally is a joyous thing, like I'm driving you to college. It was Chicago had martial law because they were afraid of what had just happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin, of a black male getting shot 7 times in the back. And then just a week prior to that, a guy went out in the middle of Nicollet Mall, which is like downtown Minneapolis, for those who don't know, a black male, and shot himself in the head, which re-erupted the distress that was already happening in Minnesota. But Michelle, how have you been? I mean, we're going to talk about some light stuff, but it's almost impossible. You almost have to address this because you're a single mom up there raising your daughter in the midst of Minnesota, which is right now. When I went there July 3rd, it was no joke. I mean, you could feel it. Like, and if you have it was the heaviest, scariest, eeriest. It felt worse than ground zero after 9/11.
it was a shockwave. I mean, Sabrina, what you were saying about, just this overwhelming feeling that there's something that you have to do. That's what came over Minneapolis. And I'm lucky that I do have my family unit right here. So even though things are changing in my family, I do have support of my kid's father and whatnot. So we're all in this home in Northeast Minneapolis, which is just not that far from South Minneapolis where it happened. And seeing the video on, I actually couldn't watch the whole video, but I saw enough. It was like chills. It was like there's no way that any of us can ignore or turn our backs anymore, because as a privileged white person living in Northeast Minneapolis, for some reason there was this high level of death is around the corner. Like, for all of us, we need to protect each other. White silence is truly violence. So I was in the same situation, sitting here with this energy of hearing tanks, of hearing the helicopters overhead,
and that's crazy when you told me that. When you told me that, who's imagined that on American soil there's a tank rolling through Minneapolis? That, in 2020, that's where we were at 3 months ago.
Yep. And not only that, but people all over, in our community. So I have a ton of friends in South Minneapolis, right in the heart of where George Floyd was killed. Like I said, we're not that far away, but we knew as a unit in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis that things were bearing down, and we could hear the rumble, and we could see on everybody's Facebook Live feeds the people who were out there, because there were a lot of people out there, or up all night protecting their homes, including the people in my neighborhood. Because what we saw, the media of this idea that the looting and the rioting is ridiculous, and why would you do that to your own community? That is not. These were people that were not from our community, that were driving around in unmarked cars trying to start trouble, and leaving violent trouble, pulling guns on my friends, breaking into, it was, horrifying stuff happening, not just in South, but a lot in South, destroying businesses. People had their plywood on their windows, but also indicating, please don't come. There are children that live in this building. The stakes, it just went through the roof at that point, and we could all feel it. Everyone was terrified, just to be in our city and to be locked down in curfew, And it's still, I was live on Twitter when I saw everything happening downtown with that shooting at Nicollet too.
And Michelle,
I used to work on Nicollet.
Michelle, you have a connection to George Floyd, if you can share that.
Yeah, so George Floyd was engaged to a woman who's in my school community. By school, I mean my daughter's school. So when all of this happened, when George Floyd was killed, our school sent out an email saying, this is important, this is heartbreaking, this is a call to action. And not only that, but George Floyd is a big part of our New City school community. And
what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Because his fiance had kids in the school system.
Gotcha.
So a parent in our school system.
Did you ever get a chance to meet him or see him?
No, but I knew his fiance. I know his fiance. She works at the coffee shop down the street from me.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Have you talked to her since then?
I haven't. My neighbors, so that coffee shop was closed for a time, obviously because of COVID, and then my next door neighbors made the connection with me and told me she is that person. I'm like, oh my gosh, I did not know that was her fiance. And so I haven't seen her since then. I don't know exactly where she lives in my neighborhood, but I know she's around. So I hope she's okay.
And just with that incident, the thing that made me sad is that, and unfortunately it happens all the time. I told people that I know in my lifetime, I for sure have been stopped over 78 times, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's, I joke and I'm sarcastic, and I'm the good Negro. You know what I mean? Those are always times that could easily go the wrong way. And I really commend both of you. I love the fact you're saying that white silence is equivalent to violence, because there are people that are reacting to this in all kind of different ways, and we definitely have to do something, because this time it's not going to go away. It's not going to stop until there's some kind of resolution, more than just letting it fizzle out by itself, because every week something else happens. Like right when we thought it was over, Kenosha happened. Right when we thought it was over, Rochester happened. Right? Like, how does something go wrong in Kenosha, Wisconsin?
We talked about this, right? Of all places, Kenosha, Wisconsin.
I want to switch gears completely, and talk to you, Michelle. We talked about the darkness and all the stuff we know that's happening, but I have this philosophy that a lot of the problems of the world are due to sexual frustration. I really do believe that. I mean, that you look at, there's pretty much no president that we have that doesn't have some kind of, sex taboo thing that's looming over them, or they're gonna do something wrong, from JFK to Billy Clinton to, W. Bush, to superstars, to, I think there's some weird, I have this philosophy even just with the police officers, with the groping of the men. Like, there's some kind of weird overall tone there that goes back to like sexual frustration and sexual energy, and not just sexual regard
of sexual energy.
Yeah, not even just sex regarding like intercourse, but sexual relations, relationships, and that there's something that's going wrong. And Michelle, you spend...
It dates back all the way to ancient philosophy. I mean, there's records of Plato trading literally knowledge for what we would consider pedophilia now. And obviously I'm not advocating for anything in either direction, but this is something that's like thoroughly ingrained in human anthropology, dating back to the inception of people, I guess.
Yeah, and a lot of people aren't aware of this. And Michelle, you and I talk about, sex therapy and sex relations, because the thing that a lot of people aren't aware of, that, our country was built on the foundation of slavery. That's a fact. We're talking 400 plus years slavery. My grandmother was born in 1919. Slavery had just ended in 1856. So, but part of how they kept people enslaved was that they used sexual warfare. Black men were sent to buck breaking farms to be broken, which it was systematic rape by white men. So when I just looked at that smug look of the officer with his knee on George Floyd's neck, it was like this weird kind of like energy of like, I want you to die, like this kind of the sadomasochist, like, because I mean, to have that mindset, to keep your knee on someone's neck for that length of time, because most people, I study martial arts, I do a martial art called Krav Maga, most people can't survive a chokehold for 30 seconds, let alone a minute. 2 minutes, forget about it. 3 minutes, forget about it. So there's something psychologically that's going on. But Michelle, you've dedicated your life to teaching people about, you're a professional, one of the most phenomenal singers that I know. Our alma mater, Gustavus Adolphus College out there. Shout out to the Gusties. But you're an amazing singer. You've been singing your entire life. You also are a performer, a burlesque performer, which is highly sexual, right? But it's about a sexual energy and teaching people about an inner energy that they have, which I feel like people that are able to express themselves that way just aren't trying to. I'm a lover, not a fighter. So, can you talk about just your career path and what you've done and how and what some of the things we've been shared?
Yeah, so there's this little a little cabaret going on in downtown Minneapolis around 2003. And I was classically trained at Gustavus, but I had always been kind of looking for my place. Like, was it jazz? Was it rock? Was it, I sang in a Christian band for a while. Like, what was my home? So I went around everywhere learning where to sing from, what energy spot, like where I'm singing from my heart, from my, from my groin, where am I singing from? I found this cabaret, I auditioned, I got in, and, fast forward, they ended up needing an MC at some point. So I filled in, I said, I have a theater background, I could probably do it until you find somebody. So we're in this little club off of 2nd Avenue, back. It's now like facing where Target Field is right now. So back in that old New French space, in a little red cabaret, seats about 60 people, I started emceeing this burlesque show every weekend. That was for probably a year and a half, 2 years. So I actually separated myself from the burlesque thing that was happening in the room, right? So I'm introducing, I'm talking about, I'm telling people what to expect. And in Minnesota, like my role felt like giving people permission to enjoy. Like open yourself up to, you know, just like, and what it looked like was giving them permission to clap, to smile. Because you know Minnesotans, like it was like, come on, just show me that you love it, right? And so then that opened the door into how I would feel on these shows every night. And then eventually one of the dancers gave me a pair of pasties. And then eventually, you know, the music got to me late one night during a show. And I was like, look, now it's going to be me revealing myself to you. And then it became a whole bit during every single show that you ended up seeing the arc of my character, like innocently telling people to enjoy, to like, and now it's me. And
what was your character's name? What was your name?
Nadine Dubois.
Nadine Dubois.
Nadine Dubois. So the funny thing that happened is that through Nadine, so Nadine is my alter ego, but let's be honest, like we're the same. But she kind of, so I'm like, I came from South Dakota, very conservative, white surroundings, Christian, Reagan, Republican sort of people. I guess what I needed was the permission myself. And through that show, every weekend night for a long time, me slowly revealing myself, me slowly telling people like, connect with this energy, enjoy. It's okay to have feelings about what's happening on stage. It's okay to love this. I gave myself permission to do the same. And you know what happened is during that period of time, my body changed shape. Like my body became an hourglass. It was so interesting. It was like the energy in my body gave
That's
me
fascinating.
more womanhood.
I can see that.
If that makes sense?
Absolutely.
Because I felt like I was hiding in it, hiding in my own body, hiding in my shell. So that was way back in the early 2000s.
Because how nude when you're doing this, because for some people that don't know burlesque is, would you describe it as like it's a teen show? It's like, it's not stripping, because you still have.
I mean, but it is.
It is stripping.
It is stripping. You know, people could make sort of oftentimes when you're trying to make a comparison between the two, you're trying to make it okay. It's not,
right.
You know, well, it is. Like, it is. In those shows back in 2003, I feel like they were a little more demure. So your nipples are covered with pasties. A G-string would probably be the most revealing part on the bottom. But now there's C-strings and merkins and teeny tiny, like the costumes are getting smaller, but that's great. So yeah, it would be a variety show format of act after act, these little vignettes of people doing their own striptease, and you could do it in reverse. You could do it while you're tap dancing, while you're singing, while you're playing guitar. You could have a burlesque act that doesn't necessarily have striptease in it. That's about subversive comedy or spoken word. Or
so that has to be scary, because, and this is my show today is about women power, because I think that a lot of power is taken away from women, because here you are, because you're a mom, so you're not supposed to do that. We both went to this super Lutheran school in St. Peter, Minnesota. You're from South Dakota with this Christian. You're like, but then here are all the, like, you're breaking these norms and you're comfortable with getting out in front of people and taking your clothes off. You mean, because like, did anyone say you didn't spend $250,000 to go to Gustavus Adolphus College to be at this cabaret taking your clothes off? You mean, like, what kind of bravery does that take? Like, where is your mindset to put yourself in that situation? Because I mean, that's why I wanted you to, just so people know the creativity in my brain. Because I have Sabrina out here protesting. like you, not that you wasn't protesting too. You weren't just on the stage stripping. But no, we didn't even talk. You were protesting. No, absolutely. You're out there protesting. Well, you brought your daughter out there to protest, which is like, that's crazy. I mean, I did 3 and I was like, I'm cool. I don't need to see anymore. Black Lives Matter from a distance. But like, no, I'm saying the first one I did went completely violent. That was not even my choice. People, so you're out there, both of you guys are out there protesting. You're nursing and protesting. You're dancing and entertaining and protesting. But that's the next level, because a lot of people just aren't comfortable with their, I mean, I think I'm in shape, but my friend called me fat the other day. I was like, how you call me fat, girl? Like,
We're not.
I've been grubbing. I've been grubbing a little bit.
And also, what's wrong with that? You know?
What's wrong with that? But I mean, that's a big, I mean, a lot of people struggle with body image. I mean, now in the days of social media, there's so much out there. Boom, they said the average person spends 4.5 hours per day just on Facebook. That doesn't include Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, Patreon, YouTube. I mean, that's just, and whatever else someone might text you on your phone. But you like had this boldness, like, I'm going to get out and physically, literally put myself out there. Like, what got you to that mindset?
It was like the process of healing, because to say that I don't have body issues would be a lie, because I went through that entire time dealing with major body dysmorphia, major times of not wanting to see photographs of myself, not, going up and down with how I felt about my performance career, based on how my body looked. But in the moment of every show that I did was this, like, I felt the most present that I ever was in my life, that I ever am. Like right before I walk on stage, I just like look up and I say, universe, just give me the words. Like, walk on stage, trust the energy, and I don't think about any of that stuff. Like, it doesn't seem brave. It seems like me. Right. It seems like me. Like, I did not care about. Now, understand, like, I wasn't billed as a burlesque dancer, billed in this show to strip. I was an MC, so I did whatever I wanted to do as long as I was running the show. So it's like the voice of all of these people exchanging energy with what they're seeing on stage, what my role is in that too. So anyway, to go back to your question, it didn't feel like it was brave. It just felt like what was right for me to do at the time to heal whatever I was trying to heal.
And that's so huge. I mean, because you and I talked about my upcoming company that I'm starting next year. It's called The Human Animal, and it's addressing sex therapy and people with relationship issues. Because through dog training, of all things, people, when I say it, it makes sense, but a lot of people don't think about it. But a lot of what I do is end up counseling, because I hear, body energy, estrogen, testosterone, dopamine, endorphins, all that stuff can throw the dog off, right? Yeah. And one of my clients just recently told me, because she's transforming from Luca to Luke, and she told me yesterday, it really warmed my heart. She said, I finally feel so free that I feel trapped this whole life. I wasn't a man. I mean, I wasn't a woman. I'm a man now. And she's like, and she's a dog walker. And I could share this story. She didn't care. And she's like, all these years, I couldn't realize like why I really couldn't connect to these dogs, because I really wasn't me. And I realized that I hated sex my whole life. And I was like, when she said that, like, I couldn't even focus on anything else. She's like nothing mattered, because my life's been like totally not true to who I am. And now I have this better relationship with my dogs, because I realize I'm not Luca, I'm Luke. And my dog loves me more. And that's why I wanted to do these podcasts. This is my client. This is a real conversation I'm having. I'm just sitting there like, wow, like, and I kind of knew that, and I really knew it. But like at this level, doing this for 20 years, I can't even get to a certain spot when I'm realizing that there's some imbalance in this person's life, because I say the dog is the final manifestation of what's happened in your life. So if you're off, dog's going to be off. Like right now, a lot of dogs are reacting due to the energy that's going on. But from a medical stance, our expert from the medical field, Sabrina, how do you feel about, I mean, as far as people's, can you weigh in on that as far as people's, the kind of like, I'm thinking that because you're dealing with people in the rawest form. They come to you, they need help medically. But I just have this, I really believe that everything is tied back to some kind of like relationship or sexual breakdown, childhood trauma that you can't, move forward. Like my friend Luca, like she's brilliant in all other aspects of her life, but now she's on fire. She's like, but that was all, she's been trapped. What's your stance on that?
Well, first of all, it sounds like he has really come into himself. So good on Luke. I'm super stoked for him. That's amazing. So in nursing, we are all taught the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So it's this like triangle. And at the bottom, there's like your basic needs, like fresh air, a roof over your head, clothes, right? Things like that. What's also at the bottom of that is sex, because it's actually very important. So what you're kind of doing is giving that like a societal presence. So from like a healthcare aspect, sex is very important. It's a natural drive in the body. Your sexual organs are responsible for hormone regulation, so many things in the body, right? So if that's off, it wreaks havoc on the body. Like women who go into menopause early experience all kinds of problems, and many of them go through hormone therapy replacement because they can't deal with how traumatic it is on the body. Same thing with young men who have low testosterone early in life. It causes a disinterest in sexual activity among a multitude of other complications. I mean, it goes so far as linking low estrogen to higher rates of breast cancer. So they're heavily linked is the point I'm trying to make. And you won't have to research very far to give you the clinical backed information that you want to apply to what you're doing. I think what's interesting by bridging that sexual energy to dog training is going to help tremendously, right? Because this is a piece of us that is a need. It's literally a need, just like fresh air and clean water and clothes. And how does that translate to your business, right? How does that translate to dog training? How does that translate to really anything we do? Because if you have this energy or a piece of you that's not being met, like if you were so dehydrated from not having clean water, or you weren't sleeping because you have chronic insomnia and now you can't function at work, it's the same. It falls into the same category. And this has been heavily researched.
Wow. You when you just said that, I had this mind explosion, because it is like dehydration of the soul.
It's the same thing.
Because this is overwhelming for me with dog training, because through a dog's behavior, I can walk into someone's house and I can be like, oh wow, he's cheating or she's cheating.
Oh my God.
Based upon, because the dogs start having a reaction. So like say like there's no sexual activity because these two are fighting, they're sleeping with backs to back. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And suddenly one of those backs are getting rubbed by another person. So then when that dog comes in, when that person comes in with that new estrogen or that new testosterone on them, this dog that has learned to live in a place where there is no sexual activity, and whatever the chemicals that the dog smells from that sexual activity have been zero, and now suddenly this person's coming. I'm not talking about the person coming in like obvious, like, woo, I just did it. I'm just talking about they can come in just like, they can just come in normal, but the dog's like, oh, hell no. Hell no, I'm about to pee on your pillow. I'm about to poop on this. I mean, those are the obvious ones. But sometimes it'll be specific behavior while I walk in and be like, I'll look at the dog, I'll look at the person, I'm like, they about to get divorced. Like, you cheat. And it was that, I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years, so it's not even like, it seems like it's complicated, but it's really not, which brought me to the point of like, well, I'm fascinated with your world, Michelle, and then obviously you live in that medical, because my whole family, my aunt, I thought she was going to sign on, Tammy, if you're out there listening, but my whole family, my mom was supposed to be a nurse. She became a teacher, but she studied to be a nurse. My aunt, Tammy, what's up, little baby? What's up? I love the cameo visits.
We have a guest, everyone.
What's up? What's
This
your
is
name?
Isla.
Hey, Isla.
Hi, Isla. I was tired of waiting for Mommy.
I was like, look, I'm going to work my way into this Zoom call some shape, way, or form.
She has been to many rehearsals and has, I carried her in her path when I was in tech rehearsals for different stage shows. So she's seen many I've done ballet shows and jazz shows and all of that stuff. But what I wanted to go back to what you were saying about energy and that, this need, this I think what we're talking about is alignment and authenticity.
Alignment.
When you're talking about Luke, and that's an amazing friend that you have, and you get to witness and understand more about that sort of coming into your own authenticity and your own self and your power. And I think that's part of what I experienced in the burlesque industry is whether they're performers or audience of whatever their selves were feeling, whether it's whether they're in the gender non-binary, trans lives, Black lives, all bodies feeling in alignment with their own energy and feeling fully expressed. That's really a new level of truth that you can, you can start to settle some things if you're in that alignment,
And you know what? I mean, on some weird level, I mean, I'm going to just, let's have fun. But what if that police officer was crushing on George Floyd on some weird homosexual level? You don't know. I mean, I think people express it's kind of like the person that's pulling the girl's hair in class because they really like them, but they don't know how to express it. That there's all this tension that's going on that's just deeply so repressed that people don't know how to. I mean, it makes me sad, but it's we went to this amazing, great school, but when I was an RA, it was it makes me super sad. But I mean, it was almost monthly I'd have some kind of rape incident. You know what I mean? Where I had to write somebody up. Yeah, it was or some sexual assault. It was freaking crazy. But I mean, I think they learn this at an early age, and then it's transferred over because there's so many just examples of things that people have contained inside. You know what I mean? That they don't know how to get out. And I think about my grandfather used to say that 75. He was dead set on. Tammy, are you there?
Yes, good morning. Sorry, I didn't want you to think I was a no-show, but I was having some issues because this morning, overnight, I didn't charge my phone and I was listening to all my YouTube influencers, so my battery was on 2%. And unfortunately, with the iPhone, you can't have your ear, and I don't have the AirPods, so when I use my earphones, I can't have my phone on the charger at the same time. So I was trying to wait for it to get enough charge to be able to call.
Tammy, you were having that, we call those grandma moments in the tech world.
Yeah.
It's okay. No, but what I was saying though, my aunt here, her father used to say this. I don't know if you ever heard him say this before. If it was just a thing he would tell me, but he was dead set on saying that 70% of, he was a police officer in military. Shout out to for another first responder. Thank you for your service. But he used to say 70% of the men that are locked up are there because of a woman. He would be dead set on that, and that people do things out of passion, people do things out of crime, people do things out of that frustration. So that's why I love talking. Michelle, you and I, we talk about this a lot, the conversations out there. Tammy, you want to weigh in on that anywhere? You jumping in? You going to listen to our conversation?
Well, I didn't know if you wanted me to weigh in on what you just spoke on. Like I said,
you can weigh in on whatever you want to weigh in on.
Wait, what was that?
You can weigh in on whatever you want to weigh in on. It's all good.
No, I was enjoying listening to your conversation. It was very informative.
Sabrina, Tammy's a labor and delivery nurse. She did it. She
retired labor and delivery nurse. So I just I retired a little early, but I retired last year. And according to my friends, they think that it was a good thing I did retire when I did because of the whole COVID thing.
Agreed. I think you got out at an excellent time.
Because they already know my issues with heat, and they were telling me about all the layers of PPE that they have to wear. And I know just from being in the OR for several hours with a mask, or sometimes I have to leave out and get relief because of, the heat from wearing a mask for that length of time. So when they told me about all of the extra PPE that they, had to wear, I thought, yeah, it was probably a good choice to retire when I did. So I do obviously take my hat off to all healthcare providers, because that is definitely a challenge.
And not just healthcare providers, but super healthcare providers like Sabrina, who's out there being mom, nurse, and protester.
I feel like I'm barely holding it all together.
And dog mom. So kid mom, dog mom, protester, and nurse all in one. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think if you're a mom, you're a superhero, regardless of what your profession is. I mean,
yeah. I mean, that's especially right now, because both of you guys are doing the Zoom calls. I mean, Zoom education calls, which that's a. I know both of you are like, we got to get back to the classroom. Because Sabrina, how old are your kids?
3 and 5.5.
So are they in Zoom kindergarten across, like, or what?
Yeah, they are. I can like see them like just over there. They're starting to get restless. They're kind of like
you're
seeing feet scurrying back and forth.
Right. They're like, she's in there. We can
they're
revolt.
Like they went upstairs. So
like, here's our chance.
Could be anything.
I would have to say, Sabrina, that you are somewhat lucky in the sense that your kids are the ages that they are. Because when I talk to some of my friends regarding their children, because a lot of my friends by default are half my age, because we just kind of clicked, and so they're my traveling buddies, but they're actually in Generation X or millennial, generation. And they were telling me about the challenges of doing the remote learning with their children, because it's such a different environment than when they were in school. Like even the math, the way they do math is totally different.
Oh, that's what I was telling Michelle earlier.
Yeah.
So for them, it's been stressful, because they don't even feel like they can offer the same help that they would have been able to offer if they, were at least learning the same math that they were taught. So
sure. Yeah.
No, me and Michelle was laughing about that. Tammy was telling about Greg at home with the twins, and and it's not the right thing to do, but he's just not a stay-at-home educator. So I call him like in the middle of the day and give him crap. I'm like, how are you talking about switching careers? But he was
leave it to you, Toriano, to give somebody crap.
It's so funny, but no, the math is no joke right now. I would not want to be doing like third grade math right now. I would be lost. I wouldn't even know. I'd be like, look, man.
I'm grateful for first grade math. I'm like, I can handle this.
Right? I got 2 + 2.
Yeah,
you
got it. You got it.
Yeah, my head. Yeah, like 2 of my friends. Yeah, and then my friend, my business partner Tyrone. Shout out to Tyrone, because anyone that's like working and doing. Like, you all get props. I'm so happy I got a college kid that doesn't call me, and I don't even know what's happening right now. Like in there, like that's, you all are in the mix. Now, I really want to. Today's show was about female power, and just because you all easily cannot. You didn't, Michelle. You saw it firsthand back in May with the George Floyd incident. You did not have to take your daughter out there, pretty little girl. You did not have to go out there whatsoever at all. Because Minnesota, I can't even imagine in the middle of it. Because my son, he was out there for a little bit. And when he finally, as a 18-year-old, he stopped even going by there. Like, it was like, I'm staying inside, So that was a whole thing. And then just like how crazy that our world would transfer to Rochester. Like, of all places, that doesn't even make sense to me. Like Rochester and Kenosha, I still can't even wrap my head around. Like, how did it even get to that point? But Sabrina, you and I met you're just a phenomenal person, period. Like why I wanted you on the show, because I'm a salesperson, but anyone that can sell me, because you got me to give you the dog. Well, I didn't give you the dog, but the dog was going someplace else. and you were like,
Yeah, he's my dog.
Tammy, I don't know if you heard the backstory, but she purchased a dog from me, and the dog was going someplace else.
Oh, I did hear you mention that. She said that had to be her dog. So,
and she was like, no, and my aunt probably can attest to the fact that if I'm selling the dog going someplace, it's going to go there. So that was a big deal for me. Like your passion that because we didn't even know each other. We're like, I'm in Wilmerman.
I had no idea that you even had this whole dog world. None of this was communicated to me at all.
No, you got it. Nah, I sucked
I had
you.
no idea.
I
no idea what I was walking into.
I sucked you into it. So like,
Toriano has a way of just attracting these kinds of things, like these happenings, right?
Right?
Yeah.
oh, absolutely.
you will get sucked. Well, I sucked her and her husband into. Not only did they come out here and get a dog, I sucked them into partying with me on my birthday. I turned them into honorary Leos for my birthday party. And that was so fun. And now here we are doing podcasts. I want to thank you all so much. This has been a super fabulous show. Everyone that's been listening. Let me see if I have any. Yeah, everyone that's been listening. Thank you all. I'm seeing who's been on. Over 100 people have watched this show. Thank you all so much. And this will be shared on Facebook and Podbeam and Instagram Live. And I would love to bring you. Oh, look at that. Everyone's making a little cameo.
Everybody's coming.
Everyone's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, you want to get it on there.
I think they know for some reason. Like,
Definitely know.
hold on. If you're going to put a kid on there. That is so awesome. I love that. I swear they know. I think people just know, like, that's like a new Zoom thing. People just like, I'm gonna walk in the frame. That's like, I'm gonna get in there. But I want to thank you all. Some housekeeping. I want to bring you all back because the thing that we've done, we have August was completely booked. September was booked by Dana Humphrey. September was booked by me. October was booked by Mary Tan. Next month we're doing a whole dedication to cats that live with dogs. It's gonna be amazing.
It's 12 o'clock.
Every show's about cats. And then November and December, Dana Humphrey and I are co-producing that show. But anyway, where I'm going with that is that August, September, October, November, December will become January, February, March, April, May 2021. So can we bring you back in February of 2021?
Absolutely.
To follow up and to see where we're at as far as Zooming with education, nursing, protesting.
Did we move to Europe by then?
Oh,
I know, right? Mars, maybe? Maybe Europe's not far enough. I don't know.
We'll be somewhere by then. Yeah, and then we're going to talk about more burlesque. And I'm going to do my own burlesque show. That's why I have my sleeves out. I was like,
There you go.
Michelle motivated.
You should have lots of conversations with lots of women, I think. That's always a good thing, right?
Absolutely. Woman power. So thank you all so much for being on the Wolfkeeper. Tammy Yammy, thank you so much for I'm glad you got over your grandma moment. And we're not saying grandma because you are a grandma. We're saying grandma because we had a grandma moment earlier.
Senior moment.
I appreciate that.
All right. So I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you all so much for joining our podcast. And thank you for my host.
You all virtually.
Wonderful meeting you.
All right. Peace and love. Thank you all.
Bye.